Okay, great. So we're back today with A Course in Miracles, and we left off with a clarification of terms. My name's Eloisa Ramos, and I'm here with Sonia Ramos. Hi,
Hi.
Sonia. And Connie Manzibo. Hi, Connie. Uh,
Hello.
so we're making this journey together through the text of A Course in Miracles. So we're happy that you joined us today. And uh, it took us through it's interesting because in your book, the right after the preface is the text, but the clarification of terms are way in the back. It's the very last thing in the textbook, if you're not sure where it is. And we're on section 2, the ego, the miracle. So I'm going to start, and I'll take the first paragraph. And then do you want to go next, Connie, after me? And then Sonia?
Uh, what
Paragraph?
if we just keep it? We were doing you, then Sonia, and then me.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think, yeah. Let's keep that system if we remember.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Okay. So, number 1, illusions will not last. Their death is sure, and this alone is certain in this world. It is the ego's world because of this. What is the ego? But a dream of what you really are. A thought you are apart from your creator, and a wish to be what he created not. It is a thing of madness, not reality at all. A name for namelessness is all it is. A symbol of impossibility, a choice for options that do not exist. We name it, but to help us understand that it is nothing but an ancient thought that what is made has immortality. But what could come of this except a dream, which, like all dreams, can only end in death? Okay. So in this paragraph, it makes it really clear what reality is not, and it's called illusion. And most of the time, we are born into a world which we consider to be reality, but it's not eternal. Everything in it, comes and goes, has beginnings and has endings. And because we've called that reality, what the Course is teaching is really turning all of our thinking upside down. One of the things, I was just having conversation with my son, and he was using the word my to refer to my life. He was saying, I was feeling really good yesterday. I was really proud of my life. But today, all that is gone. And I'm like, yes. Okay, because there's no such thing as my life. That's a separation idea of, I have a separate life from yours, and I own my life. I do whatever I want with it, kind of a thing. And it's a private, separate thing from your life. And that's what it's talking about here, basically, because anything that we make in this world, and 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 it talks about it right here. Let's see, number 10. It's referring to the ego. What is the ego? And it says we name it, so we call it ego. Okay, but to help us understand that is nothing but an ancient thought that what is made has immortality. Okay, so it's distinguishing between what is made and what is created. So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to give immortality to what we make of ourselves, to what we make. Maybe I'm very proud that I made a chair, or maybe I'm really proud that I, built a house. I made a house, but it's not immortal. And the ego makes the body. And so we try to make the body immortal, and we call that my life. But of course, the body has an end. So this is really, I think, a really good paragraph that tells us what the ego is. I don't think I've even read the clarification of terms before. Have you guys? I don't think I even got to
No.
that. No. Um,
I have, but it's been a long time, and so it feels brand new.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
Refreshed.
Yes. So number
Mm.
7, see, it says the ego is a thing of madness, not reality at all. So it is a perception of separation, a belief in separation that that we somehow, are making a life for ourselves. And I was telling my son, okay, well, really look at that, what you're saying, why is it your life? Who gave it to you? Did you give it to yourself? Where does it come from? You know, and is it your own life, or does it represent everyone's life as creation from one source that gave one life? So I was just having him look at that a little bit to understand, that what we make in this world that is not eternal is not going to be immortal, no matter how much we try.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's really frustrating because we really want it to be, eternal and immortal. Um, but yeah, it's not creation coming from a source that is eternal and can only create spirit that is eternal. So,
Yeah.
mhm. Okay, you ready, Sonia?
Yeah. What is the ego? Nothingness, but in a form that seems like something. In a world of form, the ego cannot be denied, for it alone seems real. Yet could God's Son, as he created him, abide in form or in a world of form? Who asks you to define the ego and explain how it arose can be but he who thinks it real and seeks by definition to ensure that its elusive nature is concealed behind the words that seem to make it so.
Yes, and so that's sort of the doesn't have to be a difficulty, but people, we can get ourselves tripped up because we talk about the ego. And once we talk about the ego, simply by talking about it, we seem to give it reality because we're kind of giving it form, we're making it into a concept.
Mhm.
And when we're used to believing that form is reality, simply by talking about it and making it a concept, we seem to be making it real. And it's not. So, mm, yeah, it's like you have to talk about it, but then you have to remember, okay, I'm talking about something that is just made up. Um, so it's a little bit like, the dream that I had last night. Okay. And I'm going to talk to you about it and I'm going to tell you what happened, and there's this really interesting character there. Okay. But the whole time I'm talking to you about it, I am very well aware that it's not real, that it was just a dream.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So really it's just the forgetting then. Yeah.
Yeah. hmm It's when we forget that it's a dream because we're so stuck in the dream that we are caught up in the dream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. There is no definition for a lie that serves to make it true, nor can there be a truth that lies conceal effectively. The ego's unreality is not denied by words, nor is its meaning clear because its nature seems to have a form. Who can define the undefinable? And yet there is an answer even here.
Yes. Um, so when we think about lies, because we're familiar with lies. Okay. Um, the purpose of lies is to conceal truth.
Mhm.
Okay. However, okay, number two says, nor can there be a truth that lies conceal effectively. Okay. And so sooner or later, there's discrepancies that show up. So even if we believe the lies, sooner or later there's little glitches that come to our attention. It's a little bit like I don't know if you remember the Matrix, in that part where they find Neo and they go meet in that old house where he first meets uh, the I don't remember his name now. The one that offers him the pills.
Oh, Samuel Jackson. I don't remember
Yeah,
his name, the character, but I remember, yeah.
yeah. So when they're about to go upstairs, okay, Neo catches something, okay, and they go, "What?" And he said, "Oh, I don't. Oh, it's nothing. It's just that I thought I saw the cat go by twice." And then they're all like, "Oh, a glitch," and they're onto us, so they hurry, or they could tell that when there's a glitch in the system, that they're not hidden, you know. So it's a little bit like this too, the lies can only hide truth so much, and then there's little glitches that you begin to notice, and
Yeah.
that makes you question, wait a minute, is this really true or is it a lie?
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah, and so I think that's what we notice too when we're growing up. We
Right.
notice there's little glitches in the world. It's like, how is it that people can really believe this? you know and but it's like, well, geez, everybody believes it. Why should I question it?
Oh boy.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So, see, number four, we cannot really make a definition for what the ego is, but we can say what it is not. And this is shown to us with perfect clarity. It is from this that we deduce all that the ego is. Look at its opposite, and you can see the only answer that is meaningful. Okay. So, because the ego thought system is an upside down perception of what is true, and that's why we say it's false perception, the only thing it can show us is what is not true. Okay. But most of us look at the world, and what we see in the world, we think is telling us what is true about us. But if all we're seeing is separation and conflict and fear, it's not showing us what is true about us. It's showing us the opposite of what is true, because it's upside down.
Hmm.
And so when we're young, we tend to believe a lot of the judgments that we hear from parents, from siblings, from friends, whatever, society, that are not true. But because they're coming from um, people that we respect, or maybe we fear, we accept them to be true. Okay. And then we make them true about us, that we believe them to be true about us. And now we have this whole concept of ourselves as an ego, because they're basically ego thoughts of separation of what I am. And they're completely fabricated, they're made up. And then we have to go in and, first of all, find them, look at them, and then release them, recognizing they're not true, as a way to come to know what we really are in truth.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think what you said is a really great definition about the ego, that the only thing the ego shows us is what is not true in the world.
Yes.
That's a powerful statement. Yeah, it's good.
Yes, because it says it right here. Okay.
Yeah.
So error, when we look at error, it doesn't say anything about us. It says what we are not. And that's why we forgive it, because it's not true. Okay. And if we don't forgive it, what we're going to do is we're going to hold on to that idea as if it was true. So we're going to believe things about ourselves and about others for that reason, that are based on ideas of separation, conflict, and fear. And those are the experiences that we're going to have, because our beliefs are going to be the filtering mechanism that interprets uh, our experiences that way. What happens to us, we're going to experience it through those lenses,
Mhm.
and they're lenses that are false. So they've distorted the truth. Okay, so Sonia, I think it's your turn.
Okay. The ego's opposite in every way, in origin, effect, and consequence, we call a miracle. And here we find all that is not the ego in this world. Here is the ego's opposite, and here alone we look on what the ego was, for here we see all that it seemed to do, and cause and its effects must still be one.
Okay, so it's looking at how the the ego is an upside down thought system. Okay, and the
Mhm.
opposite of the ego's thought system is actually a correction, a correction of the upside down, so that it's right side up now, and that's the miracle.
Mhm.
And so the ego's opposite is what we call a miracle, because it restores true perception. And the mind then um, recognizes that recognizes what is true, that is not the ego in this world, which would be love, which would be joining, which would be peace, inner peace, happiness. And so that's what the miracle offers. It offers a true reflection of what is knowledge or absolute truth of God, that is only love and eternal.
Mhm. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um,
So really it's like the world, since we're just projecting it, it's just neutral. It's not good or bad, but our judgments are making our perception either wrong-minded or right-minded, right? So So when it says, and here we find all that is not the ego in this world, that's just what you were saying, is that switch that is looking at it with the spirit, right? With
Mhm.
right mindedness.
Yes, with vision. And the vision that comes from the right mind, which is Holy Spirit, perceives only innocence, and therefore can only offer love, because
Yeah.
yeah, it sees no attack. So what, I mean, there's no fear. Okay, there's no defensiveness.
Hmm.
um, there's no threat. So
Yeah.
there's complete safety, um, and and from that place, the um, the essential nature of what we are can shine through
Hmm.
as love.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah. And so that's what the miracle does, is that it undoes everything that the ego seemed to do as cause and effects.
Mhm.
And that's why we experience healing with the miracle. It's the healing of the mind, who was identified with the ego idea of separation.
Hmm.
Okay.
Okay. Where there was darkness, now we see the light. What is the ego? What the darkness was. Where is the ego? Where the darkness was. What is it now, and where can it be found? Nothing and nowhere. Now the light has come. Its opposite has gone without a trace. Where evil was there, now is holiness. What is the ego? What the evil was. Where is the ego? In an evil dream that but seemed real while you were dreaming it. Where there was crucifixion stands God's Son. What is the ego? Who has need to ask? Where is the ego? Who has need to seek for an illusion now that dreams are gone?
Hmm.
Mm,
Yes. So
mm,
basically, I mean, that is the darkness. The darkness is just the absence of the light. And it's not that the light is not there, is that the mind that is perceiving upside down is unaware of the light. And so that's the same with the miracle. The Course says that miracles are normal and everyday, but we're not aware of them, because as long as we identify and value the idea of separation, we're going to be in a place of fear and conflict. Um, and that's a very dark place. Which is not reality. But nevertheless, it seems to be real to us in that state of mind of of not recognizing the truth of what we are. And with that, of course, comes misperceptions of what we see in the world as evil, because we see guilt, and because we're afraid, that we have sinned against God and that we are going to be punished for it. And yeah, it's a pretty scary dream. Um, and there's a lot of suffering that goes on. I think the crucifixion of feeling like you're crucified, like you're in pain. Um, and the world's out to get you, that kind of thing. And then the questioning, what is the ego, who has need to ask? Who has need to ask? Because the questioning part of of that of consciousness is the ego itself, because it does not know. We ask questions because we don't know. And if we already knew that we are not separate from knowledge and absolute truth, then there would be no questions, because there would be no confusion. So, yeah. And that's the miracle. I think the miracle is brings that light, that is clarity. And, even if it's just for a moment, we can experience freedom from that dream of darkness. And and that experience tells us that darkness um, is not what is true, is not what is real. So that it doesn't have to be that way. Okay, so what is a miracle? It's a dream as well, but look at the aspects of this dream and you will never question anymore. Look at the kindly world you see extend before you as you walk in gentleness. Look at the helpers all along the way you travel, happy in the certainty of heaven and in the surety of peace. And look an instant too on what you left behind and at last and finally passed by. So, it's kind of saying what I just kind of touched on a little bit, that the miracle is also a dream because it's still part of the world of perception, but it gives us this opening for the mind to remember, that there's another way to see this world, and that rather than seeing hatred, we can see kindness and we can extend it. And, rather than choosing violence, we can choose gentleness. Um, and we are given all these helpers along the way, um, to experience happiness and peace. And when you have that experience more and more consistently, you can really see that you have left that darkness behind, and and don't have to keep going back to it, finally passed by. It means that we're not toggling back and forth anymore, but we're on a more stable course, um, where we recognize it's not real.
Would that be referring to the happy dream
Mm-hmm.
then? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, you want to go?
Okay. Mhm. This was the ego. All the cruel hate, the need for vengeance and the cries of pain, the fear of dying and the urge to kill, the brotherless illusion and the self that seemed alone in all the universe. This terrible mistake about yourself, the miracle corrects as gently as a loving mother sings her child to rest. It is not a song like this what you would hear? Would it not answer all you thought to ask, and even make the question meaningless?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So if we could leave this idea of the ego that shows up as cruel hate, need for vengeance, cries of pain, the fear of dying, the urge to kill, the brotherless illusion, the selves that seemed alone. I mean, how many people feel alone? Um, and if we could just see that, um, as a mistake that we made about ourselves, um, and the miracle corrects that. The miracle helps us to remember that that is not true. That's not really what we are. And therefore we can rest peacefully like a child, going to bed with a loving mother, because we are now trusting that we're not alone, that we are not separate from our source, that we are loved, that we are loving. Um, and you can kind of feel that when you can connect to that. You can kind of feel that like a little warm, gentle blanket, like your mother tucking you in, just putting a warm, gentle blanket. um, and is that not what we would rather hear and experience? Um, so I think that in the end, that is what everyone is longing for and seeking, uh, maybe in all the wrong places, but that's just because our perception has gotten so confused, um, that the reversal of that, which is what the miracle helps with, gives everyone that same experience and that same recognition that we're not different, that we're all the same. Um, and therefore, um, let's see, that is the undoing of the ego, which is the belief that we are separate and have separate interests and have to compete, in a world of scarcity and all of that. So
Okay. Your questions have no answer, being made to still God's voice, which asks of everyone one question only. Are you ready yet to help me save the world? Ask this instead of what the ego is, and you will see a sudden brightness cover up the world the ego made. No miracle is now withheld from anyone. The world is saved from what you thought it was, and what it is wholly uncondemned and wholly pure.
Mhm. That actually reminds me of the workbook lesson a couple of days ago. I think it was the review. The one question, are you ready yet to help me save the world? Reminded me of the lesson, salvation of the world depends on me.
Mm.
And I think I'm just starting to really like understand that, because every time I would repeat that, because that was the practice for the lesson, you would repeat it like every hour, half hour. It's really just taking back that responsibility that it's my own job to forgive everything, because I have the responsibility. It's not anything outside that's gonna quote unquote save the world. Like, oh yeah, like I give you an example. My dad and me were watching TV and he made a comment, something like, oh, wouldn't it be we were watching the Olympics and he was saying something like, wouldn't it be wonderful if everybody would just live on the planet in peace, they would be like a certain way. That way we could have like, you know, peace in this world. But I was sitting there thinking, well, that's never going to happen unless we do that lesson, we go inside, and see that okay, it's my job. It's not anything that I do that's going to save the world. It's just my own forgiveness. Does that make sense?
yes, because what you're recognizing is that the level of causality is in the mind, in our mind. And so it's not the world that can change on its own, um, because the world is a projection of the thoughts in our mind. So it's just reflecting back what we're thinking. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yes. And so the salvation happens when we change our mind and we decide for love, rather than fear and for hate. And when we choose peace instead of conflict, and that means that we choose to forgive, uh, because not because we're really doing other people a favor, but because we're recognizing that our um, mind has the power to make what is not true seem to be true. And if collectively um, we all do that, we're making a world of conflict seem to be real when it's not. And
Mm-hmm.
so for us to withdraw from that collective thought system means that we are in a way weakening it, because either we're supporting the ego thought system of separation, or we are weakening it. And therefore, in a strange way, by not supporting it, we are undoing it. And that's what the miracle is. It's a change in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But the reversal of the cause and effect um, basically says that what my eyes see is the reference point for what is true. And what it just told us a few paragraphs above, that what my eyes see is a reflection of the ego thought system, and it's telling me what is not true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why we can't depend on what the eyes see to tell us what is true, because we are giving it all the meaning to the world um, through our interpretation. So, like you were saying earlier, Sonia, the world is not one way or another. It's like a mirror that just reflects back
Mm-hmm.
what we are projecting onto it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, do you want to go, Connie?
I just read, you can go, Eloisa.
Oh, okay. Number 10. Do you want me to go?
Yeah.
Okay. The miracle forgives, the ego damns. Neither need be defined except by this. Yet could a definition be more sure or more in line with what salvation is? Problem and answer lie together here. And having met at last, the choice is clear. Who chooses hell when it is recognized? And who would not go on a little while when it is given him to understand the way is short and heaven is the goal? Okay. So that is very clear. I mean, it puts it very succinctly. The miracle is when we choose to forgive, because for the most part, we've learned that forgiveness is not really, what's the word? It's not strength. For the most part, we've been taught that strength is defense and attack. Um, and so to practice forgiveness, to a lot of people, it means that basically you're not strong enough to stand up for yourself and defend yourself and, keep yourself safe in the world. And therefore, that's considered to be not, what's the word? Not deserving of survival of the fittest kind of thing. So it really does um, require that you experience how it is that forgiveness is strength. Because when you think about defense and attack, which is what ego damnation is, that if you damn someone, you're attacking them or you're defending yourself against someone. That's really just reactivity. So, if someone says something unkind to you and you take it personally, you react just like that. And what that means is that you don't have control of your reaction. Okay. You may have a very strong reaction to it, but you're not controlling your reaction because it's an unconscious thing that you're doing. So you yourself are being imprisoned by all these unconscious internal reactivity to attack and to defend. And that's not strength because you're basically being driven by all your unconscious fears.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That actually what you were saying, I don't know, I have an example. I think I told you it before, Mom, of when me and my brother were in the kitchen. I think that's a good example. Yeah. So I was in the I had taken a nap and I had woken up. I went to the kitchen to get something to drink. And so I was in there, and then there was a pizza cooking in the oven behind me. And my brother comes in, and it was his pizza. So he takes out the pizza, and it's hot, right? So before all this happened, he had gotten to like a tussle with his coworker. He was kind of riled up, from whatever conflict that they had about him feeling judged by his coworker. So anyway, he takes the pizza out, but I have my back turned, so I didn't know what he was doing behind me. And so he kind of says, "Oh my God, like Sonia, like can't you see like uh you need to move, like I'm taking the pizza out. Like why can't you see?" So I turn back and I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I just move out of the way. So he puts the pizza down, and I can see that he's like in a whole kind of mood, like a really, or whatever. And so I'm fixing my drink, and he makes a comment saying, "Oh, it must be really, you must feel really good up there in your ivory throne," or whatever, sitting up there in your ivory throne. And I look at him, and for a second I didn't really register like what he had said to me, because I just woken up, I was like, so I was like, wait, I told him what, like and so he says it again, he's like in a tone, very childish tone, and he's like, "Oh, it must feel really good up there, like sitting on your ivory throne," And I look at him, and for a second I was ready to go at it, I was ready to react, because that's what I usually do, especially with him. I'm really quick to just, go into that reactivity and be like, defend myself. But for that split second, I had to catch myself, and it was really interesting because I heard the lesson in my mind: in my defenselessness, my safety lies. So I remembered that, and then I stopped and I just said, "You know what? It's okay, Oscar. You can project, it's fine, Go ahead and project. That's okay." That's all I said. And then he said something like, "Oh, you're being so judgy, like you're judging me," So he kept continuing. But then I just stopped. I didn't even say anything. I just stayed silent, didn't even react to it whatsoever. And so I went out of the kitchen, had my meal or whatever, and then he left. And then I would say like an hour later, I kind of forgot about it. So he came back, and I was eating and my back was turned again, so I didn't really notice that he was passing me by to the kitchen. But I think he was saying something like, "Oh, like I'm sorry, like that was my own, stuff. I was just projecting and stuff." I couldn't really hear him because I had headphones in, but I realized after that because I didn't go into that reactivity, it was just he figured it out on his own. Like I didn't need to do anything. Like he just completely just made peace with it. So I was like, "Oh," it kind of clicked in my head. "Oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing." every time with any person, you know, like it didn't click with me because with him especially, I just go at it like instant, like not even, I don't even think about it. But this was the first time I was able to just be like, oh, okay, I don't need to do anything, which is the best way. So I don't know if that's a good example of that, but
Mhm.
that just helped me realize, yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good example because, it's who chooses hell when it is recognized. So in that instant, you recognized if you went at it, you were just walking straight down to hell.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, I already know how it would have ended. It would not have been good.
Yes, and then you also recognize that you were ready to are you ready to help me save the world? Because that's helpful for him. You see, you didn't just help yourself, and that's the really amazing, that's the miracle, because it's not just that you're saving yourself from going down to hell into conflict, but you can have peace and keep your peace. But you're also offering that as a reminder to him that he has that same choice.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so it does help to save the world because it reminds people that, uh, these things are learned and they're repeated and they're almost automatic. But but if you are tired of it, you have that choice and you have the guidance, that came to you. So everyone has that higher guidance from the Holy Spirit to help us remember, okay, wait a minute, in my defenselessness, my safety lies. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was just going to bring up, it's so great that that just automatically came to mind for you, that one lesson. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was so strange because usually that doesn't like happen. It's just kind of just I think in that moment that's what was supposed to pop
Yeah.
up in my head.
Great.
Mhm, mhm. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see.
Mm.
Okay. So what's next here? Okay. The next section, we have time to go into the next section, or should we stop? What do you guys want to do?
Up to you guys. I'm fine with.
I'm I'm good to go if you
Okay.
are.
Yes. So number 3 is forgiveness, the face of
Mhm.
Christ. Okay. Let's see. You want to go, Sonia?
Sure. Okay. Forgiveness is for God and toward God, but not of him. It is impossible to think of anything he created that could need forgiveness. Forgiveness, then, is an illusion, but
Mm.
because of its purpose, which is the Holy Spirit's, it has one difference. Unlike all other illusions, it leads away from error and not towards it.
Hmm. Mhm. Okay. So that's what the undoing um, is. It's that it leads away from the error, so it does not repeat the error. Um,
Mhm.
and so it's interesting that forgiveness, it is impossible to think of anything he created that could need forgiveness, because everything that God created is holy and has not changed itself. So the beliefs that we have about ourselves would say, oh no, I'm not holy, I'm really bad, I do terrible things, or I'm mean, and I'm a sinner. So we have all these beliefs about ourselves um, that would say that we have changed how God created us. But to God, forgiveness is not necessary, because God recognizes that his creation is holy and has not changed. So it is only an illusion in our mind, which is the ego thought system, that says that we have really changed. Yes, we have. And no, we're not holy anymore. And we have left heaven. And, you know, are deserving of punishment because we are no longer as we were created. Um, and if that were true, then it would mean that we somehow were greater than God, because we would have to have more power than what is all powerful to be able to change what God, who is all powerful, created. And of course, that's just impossible. But yes, that is one of the ideas that is really cherished in the ego thought system, that we can be greater than God.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Forgiveness might be called a kind of happy fiction, a way in which the unknowing can bridge the gap between their perception and the truth. They cannot go directly from perception to knowledge because they do not think it is their will to do so. This makes God appear to be an enemy instead of what he really is. And it is just this insane perception that makes them unwilling merely to rise up and to return to him in peace.
Okay, so forgiveness is, part of what we do here, in a world of perception that is not knowledge. It's not absolute truth. Um, but but it is the way in which, um, we can build a bridge here between perception and the truth, which we have forgotten. And so it's a way to help us remember the truth. Um, but because we have made this separation between perception and knowledge, um, we believe that we cannot directly go from perception to knowledge. Um, uh, let's see. The course says that the first split was consciousness, and consciousness is basically perception. It's how we perceive things in the world and how we perceive ideas about what we are and what we think we are and what we think others are and what we think God is. And that's what makes up the whole ego thought system. Is It's not ideas based on knowledge. It's just based on ideas that are made up, imaginary. Um, so, I mean, if you look at mythology, there's all these stories about, who God was. There's Zeus, and there's, um, in the Aztecs, there's the sun, and there's the rain, and there's so we can call God, um, to the things that we perceive in the world, and that's and so we have made the error of bringing God into the illusion, um, by making what the things that we see and concepts that we make up in the world represent and be God for us, substitutes for God. Um, and so that's why we need help. We need help to be able to release the um, the ideas that we have conjured up to mean God to us, that are not. And yes, because with these ideas we can believe that God is an enemy instead of what he really is. And that's why we can fear God. And so these are insane perceptions. Um, and they interfere with our ability to just snap out of the dream. So we do need to ask for help from the Holy Spirit, which is our link to that forgotten knowledge of truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that forgiveness is kind of showing our willingness to remember. So it's a practice that says, I really want to see it a different way. And so I am willing to forgive because I do want to know truth again. I do want to remember truth.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. Do you want to go, Sonia?
Yeah. We're on 3.
Yes.
Okay. And so they need an illusion of help because they are helpless, a thought of peace because they are in conflict. God knows what his son needs before he asks. He is not at all concerned with form, but having given the content, it is his will that it be understood. And that suffices. The form adapts itself to need. The content is unchanging, as eternal as its creator.
Okay. So in this paragraph, what it's saying is that the form adapts itself to the need. So the way that the help comes to us is going to be in different ways. So the Course in Miracles is one way that help can comes to us, but it's not the only way. So because the form needs to come in a way that we are open to it, and people are feel comfortable, or more comfortable, we tend to gravitate, um, we're all seeking the truth, but we tend to gravitate to different forms that we can connect to and receive that truth. So the help will come to us in the way that is most, what's the word, that we are most open to it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, God knows what his son needs before he asks, and he is not concerned at all with form. And that's why God can be um, can offer help in different forms. It doesn't have to be, one way.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, my turn. Is it my turn?
Oh, I think it's Connie. Wait,
So
I think I just read, so
it's
yeah,
Connie's
it's
turn.
Connie's turn.
4, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The face of Christ has to be seen before the memory of God can return. The reason is obvious. Seeing the face of Christ involves perception. No one can look on knowledge, but the face of Christ is the great symbol of forgiveness. It is salvation. It is the symbol of the real world. Whoever looks on this no longer sees the world. He is as near to heaven as is possible outside the gate. Yet from this gate, it is no more than just a step inside. It is the final step, and this we leave to God.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yes. So the face of Christ represents the recognition that we are as life, as creation, just one son. And because we are just one son, there is no separation in truth. So when we look upon the world and we look upon our brothers, the face of Christ sees a forgiven world. And and therefore, because it recognizes that there is no separation, we are just looking, every time we look, every time I look at Sonia, every time I look at Connie, I'm seeing myself. Okay. And if I recognize that I am God's creation, well, then I'm just seeing a reflection of Christ in you, that's telling me what I am. I am no longer seeing the ego thought system that's telling me what I am not. Okay, so it means that the world has been saved because the world is no longer showing me what is upside down, and I have released the ego thought system. And so that's the face of Christ, and that's the symbol of the real world. And in the real world, we are not separate from God. We are a part of God. And so that distinction between the created and the creator is very close to being remembered. And that's why it is left to God, because God is all there is. So in the final step, there is no face of Christ. It's just all God. It just is. Even that distinction is left behind. Okay, my turn. Okay, 5. Forgiveness is a symbol too, but as the symbol of his will alone. It cannot be divided. And so the unity that it reflects becomes his will. It is the only thing still in the world in part, and yet the bridge to heaven. So when we believe that we are separate, we believe somehow that our will can be separate from the will of God, because otherwise there would be no separation. You know, if everything that we're doing in the world is the will of God, well, then how could I be separate from God? I could not be separate from God. Um, and so, so the forgiveness is the practice of remembering that we are not separate, and that there are not separate wills, even though that's what we seem to experience here when we identify as an ego or a body. Um, but the forgiveness is what is going to be the bridge to get us to remember that we are still in heaven. So it's the state of heaven, even while we are still seeming to be in the world. Because the world is really a world of symbols. So, yeah. Okay. Do you want to go, Sonia?
Yeah. God's will is all there is. We can but go from nothingness to everything, from hell to heaven. Is this a journey? No, not in truth, for truth goes nowhere. But illusions shift from place to place, from time to time. The final step is also but a shift. As a perception, it is part unreal. And yet this part will vanish. What remains is peace eternal and the will of God. That's what you were talking about.
Yes. So, yes. So, because remember, it's a return to knowledge, and that's the final step. So we leave perception behind, the part that is still perception. So as a perception, it is still part unreal, and yet this part will vanish, so that we are just yes, so that the choice between perception and knowledge is not even there. It's just knowledge, you know. Yeah. Which is the will of God, is eternal peace. Okay.
Okay. There are no wishes now, for wishes change. Even the wished for can become unwelcome. That must be so, because the ego cannot be at peace. But will is constant as the gift of God. and what he gives is always like himself. This is the purpose of the face of Christ. It is the gift of God to save his Son. But look on this, and you have been forgiven.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah, so the wished for, number two, even the wished for can become unwelcome. So that's the thing about the ego thought system. You know, we can wish for things, and then once we get them, it's like, oh, yeah, well, you know, maybe we like them for a little while, and then it's like, oh, I don't want this anymore, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, I want something different, you know, or,
Mhm.
or yeah, I really want that, you know, and then I get it, and it's like, oh man, that was a mistake. So, but the will is non-changing. God's will is non-changing, and for that reason, it's constant. Um, and so what He gives, what God gives to us is always like Himself, non-changing, and and that's the face of Christ. When we no longer see differences and everything is the same, well, there's no change there. Um, and because there's no change, there's no inequality. um, you know, there's no what's the word, there's no sense that, oh, there's no sense of scarcity, because, you know, if there's no inequality, then everybody has everything. Everyone shares in everything. um, and and therefore there is no need to struggle to survive, to, you know,
Mhm.
all of that. Okay, so let's see. Number 8. How lovely does the world become in just that single instant when you see the truth about yourself reflected there. Now you are sinless, and behold your sinlessness. Now you are holy, and perceive it so. And now the mind returns to its creator, the joining of the Father and the Son, the unity of unities that stands behind all joining, but beyond them all. God is not seen, but only understood. His Son is not attacked, but recognized. Mm-hmm. Yes, so the so when we see the truth reflected in the world, we recognize that there is only one Son. So being one Son, one creation, there's no way for my mind to attack somebody else. I'm just attacking myself, because giving is receiving. So there's no way for me to take advantage of you, and there's no way for you to take advantage of me, because we're the same self, same Son of God. Um, and so if I, you know, if I attack, then I must want to be attacked. And in my freedom, I can give that to myself. um, but I can also change my mind and decide that I would rather have peace, that I would rather have happiness. So, and what I see is going to reflect those decisions of what I want to see.
Mhm.
So now I can see that I am sinless, and I will behold you as sinless too, um, because there's no separation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
You know, I just love that line. For me, the line 5, God is not seen, but only understood. And I think for so long, I have just wanted some sort of a vision, a true vision of what God looks like or appears. And so Yeah, that line is very, very good for me. Only God is only understood. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because we have the tendency to want to make God a perception that can be seen. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
of
think
course,
that really gets in the way for a lot of people, including
yes.
yeah.
Yeah, because then we would be making him into a concept that our mind could grasp. And if our mind could grasp that concept and we make God into a concept, we have just basically dethroned God. Because we have made God into a concept in our mind. So we have made God into what we want to believe he is.
Some sort of form.
Some sort of form that would be limited. That would not be God because it would be limited in form.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that was number 3.
Cool.
And let's see. The
Can we
next stop here.
Pause?
Mm-hmm.
Can
Yes.
we take a quick pause?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
You want to take a pause or do you want to just stop, Connie?
A pause is fine, whatever you guys want to do.
Let's see. Well, it's almost 10 to 12.
Yeah. Okay.
So we wouldn't have time to finish the next section.
Okay. All right.
Why don't we call it, a good time to stop here. Do you have anything else to say before we stop?
Not until you stop the recording. It's about something else.
Okay.
Real quick.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I will do that. Let me do that.